Please keep your arms, hands, feet, torso, nose, eyes, and hair follicles inside the vehicle at all times as it proceeds along its way. Seatbelts are to your right, left, below you, and above. It's going to be a very bumpy ride. The exits are... There are no exits. You are stuck here, listening to me speak about books. All right, welcome to your flight. I am your captain, Emma. I have no experience. I've never flown a plane before, so hold on to yourself and whatever you think is precious, because today we're going to be talking about books from all over the world that I've been reading. This is going to be a mid-year update on my reading a book from every country challenge, which I kind of accidentally stumbled into doing myself. I didn't plan 2021 to do a around the world reading challenge, but I just started doing it randomly in January, and I was like, this is phenomenal, this is great, I want to do this. I want to restart reading a book from every country, even if, say, I've already read a book from that country before, like Canada's on here. I've clearly read not that many books from Canada. I'm a bad Canadian, but you get what I mean. Yeah, so I just thought we would do a little update and explain and go through all the books from all the countries I've read so far this year. I have read 21 books, so I read from 21 different countries this year, which is really exciting. Of course, I've read more books than that. I think I'm up to almost either 60 or 70 at the minute, but for example, like I've already read books from Japan in the past. And this year already, I think I've read 9 or 10 books from Japan, so I just picked either my favorite or the first one I read from that country. And yeah, how I've been doing it is either through like a country randomizer, or sometimes I follow along with the Invisible Cities project, which is a really cool booktube project. I'll have all the links down below where they read from different countries each month, but mostly I've just been doing it randomly, haven't put any pressure on myself, and it's just allowed me to find some of my favorite books of all time now. So if you would like to fall asleep during our journey today, our little flight around the world, you can absolutely do so. And if I may be so bold, I would like to recommend you a mattress company, because this video is wonderfully sponsored by Helix Sleep. Oh my gosh. My quality of life has honestly gone through the roof with my mattress that I got 4 months ago now. Love it, like literally love it. If you've never heard of Helix Sleep, they are a premium mattress in the box company that specializes in creating mattresses that are personalized for you and your unique sleep profile and sleep needs. We all need sleep, but we all need it differently. With Helix is super duper easy because you can just hop on to their website, and they actually have created a whole sleep quiz that you can take. It outlines questions like, are you a side sleeper? Are you a back sleeper? Do you experience any back pain? So based on my results on Helix's sleep quiz, I got paired with the Midnight Luxe mattress. I am so happy about going to bed, because usually I have this weird attitude where I'm like, no, I should like stay up and do things and like be productive, and I shouldn't go crawl into my bed. But like this mattress just calls to me. I hear it at like 9:45. It's like, Emma, come sleep, Emma. It is the medium firmness, so it's not too soft, it's not too hard, it's just perfectly bouncy, plush. It gives me some support, it's a little bit firm, it's just perfect. We all know I sleep like a weird possessed demon. I usually sleep on my back with my arms like vertically just straight above my head. I don't know what I'm doing in my sleep, and we don't know. If you are a bit hesitant of ordering a mattress online, which I had never done before receiving the Helix mattress, there's no need to be, because Helix does offer you a 100-day sleep trial in which you can test out the mattress, see if you like it, and at the end of that period, if you're not satisfied, they will actually just come pick it up for you. The Helix mattress does arrive right at your door. Shipping is free within the US. So if you would like to get yourself a mattress, get a little bit of better sleep in your life, perhaps, you can go to helixsleep.com/Emmy for up to $200 off your Helix Sleep mattress, as well as 2 free pillows, which I also did get, which I love as well. So thank you so much, Helix. Now that you're all rested up and you're ready for my flying, which like we said, I don't know how to do, let's just go around the world. We're gonna take you around the world in books, and today you're gonna visit 21 countries. I hope you have your passports out. I hope you have your cameras, your tourist outfits, and a journal ready to note down some books that you're gonna love from these countries. So let's get started. All right guys, so here's my little stack. I grabbed my glasses because I forgot to grab them, but now we have them. So this is my stack, and I do have some other books from countries. So I'm just gonna start in order, like what country I read from first, and then we're just gonna go through the year all the way from January to today, which is June 22nd or something like that. All right, if you look out your windows, you will see we have arrived in Japan. So the first book that I read, this is actually the first book I read in 2021, and it was a great one. And that's from Japan. This is Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. I love this. I love this so much. It was such a great start to the year. It was a fantastic snowy companion for the snowy months that I read it in. It was great. The audiobook was phenomenal. I listened to this one on audiobook. I feel like most of these I have, but this was just, it was really good. I did a whole review video on this because it just inspired me so much. I loved the subtlety of this book. I love the colors in here. Kawabata is like such a haiku master, and he works so much of like the world of the haiku into his books, into his description, into his play on nature and people. So Snow Country follows the tragic love affair of two people who meet at a hot mountain spring in one of Japan's snowiest regions and one of the coldest and snowiest regions on Earth, Snow Country. So we follow Komako and Shimamura, and they try to be together. She becomes a geisha. We follow Shimamura as he goes back and forth from Tokyo to the hot mountain spring, and it's just really tragic, barren, desolate. So much melancholy in this book, and it was really beautiful. Like I said, read it for like that subtlety, that little burst of color or light or contrast. There's so much contrast in this book, and I really loved it. I cannot wait to read more Kawabata, so this is the first one that I decided to read for Japan, and now we've read from Japan. So let's make our next stop, I think, in India, because for Indian Lit I got to read Getcher Gulcher by Vivek Shanbeg. This was really good as well. I hadn't heard too much about this book, but I saw it as an audiobook, and so I decided to pick it up. And this is one of those books that has an ending that just like makes you go back and reevaluate everything. So Getcher Gulcher, we are following primarily this man who is our protagonist, and he's kind of not used to standing up for himself. His family walks all over him. He doesn't do very much for anyone. He's kind of just coasting through life on his uncle's business. I believe he's recently started a spice business, and previously their family was quite poor, but now there's suddenly been this economic boom, and it follows a lot of families who are going through the same thing, and basically how money and accumulating so much wealth in a very short period of time changes family and changes family dynamics, and especially in India's changing financial climate in this book as well, which is really cool to follow. But this book is actually a lot darker than it seems, and it handles so many other themes and scenarios and really important discussions and stuff, and by the end I kind of just got like chills, and I was like, oh my gosh, didn't know that was what was being talked about or going on in this book. So really liked it, and would also recommend. I think I'd probably recommend, I had a few books on here that I didn't really jive with, but most of the countries I've got to read from this year, phenomenal literature, like so good. So that is India. All right, next we're gonna head to China. I got to pick up The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. This was so good. This is a very significant science fiction book, and I loved it. This won the Hugo Award. This is translated by Ken Liu. Oh, this one is translated by Edward G. Seidensticker, sorry. So The Three-Body Problem, like I said, is science fiction, and I don't want to say too much. I think the synopsis on the back honestly spoils some things, but basically we switch back and forth kind of between two timelines. We have the Cultural Revolution in the 60s, and then we have kind of the present timeline. I believe this is set in 2008, and we have the scientist who is being kind of inducted into this world and this little community where things are going wrong, and physics, what we've known as physics and what we've built up as math and physics and everything we rely so heavily on, isn't working anymore, and we don't really know why. So we find out that during the Cultural Revolution there was the secret military base that was sending signals into space to try and find alien life and communicate with them, and this also does revolve around a video game called The Three-Body Problem that a lot of people are playing in present day, and are unable to solve, like this physics problem of three orbiting bodies. So good, so impressed. This is just also such great political commentary, also using the lens of science fiction and scientific ideas to talk about politics and social things and people and life and government, and it was so great. I cannot wait to read the next one because I believe this is a trilogy, so would really highly recommend as well. First book that I read from Russia in this challenge was Childhood, Boyhood, Youth by Leo Tolstoy, although I have read many Russian works since. This was just the first one. This is actually the first ever book for the Dickens versus Tolstoy book club, which just feels so weird now because we've already read like War and Peace and stuff, and I just can't believe like it already seems so far away even though we just started, Carolyn and I just started this project. So this is Tolstoy's first novel and it is split into 3 parts, Childhood, Boyhood, Youth. It is kind of semi-autobiographical, following a young boy named Nikolenka in Russia as he's growing up. It's just basically like a slice of life as he's coming into his teens. We follow him throughout 3 movements of his life, childhood, boyhood, and youth. It was really sweet. It was very melancholic, very nostalgic. Was it the strongest Tolstoy I've ever read? Absolutely not. Was it still charming, full of life, full of realism? Yes, yes, and yes. So I really, really enjoyed this one. And this one is translated by Judson Rosengrant. So that is that one. And I'm just so happy that I've got to read so much more from Russia this year because it's been so good. Next up, we are gonna fly to Finland, and for this one I read The Year of the Hare by Arto Pasalena. This is just such a nice ode and a recapturing of our connection with nature. So basically in The Year of the Hare, we're following this journalist named Vatanen, and he's super duper unhappy with his modern life. He hates his job, he hates his marriage, he hates everything, he hates modernity. And so what he chooses to do after his van hits a hare, breaks its leg, he scoops this little creature up and runs with it away, and he's gone. He's in the forest, he's gone. No one's ever gonna see from him again, except they do, and we follow him on kind of this like odyssey, I want to call it. Like The Year of the Hare is very much an odyssey into nature and him breaking down all the barriers that separate what we've built up as our modern life from our connection with nature and nature itself, and us kind of reverting back to the animals we are. It was really sweet. I really, really liked it. It discussed a lot of things. It was also extremely funny. I think Arto Pasalena is a very funny author, and I thought it was really well done. This one, I think I actually enjoyed the experience more of having read it than while I was reading it. Yeah, I just thought this was really nice, so I think I give this 4 stars as well. So that is The Year of the Hare. Next up, from Chile, I read A Little Lumpen Novelita by Roberto Bolaño. Really like this one as well. This one was very dark. We are set in Italy actually, and we are following 2 siblings. Their parents have just died in a car crash and they're living by themselves in their home, and they're kind of having to pay the bills and work. The brother works at the local gym and she works, I believe, at a hair salon, but then the brother brings home some guys from the local gym and they slowly start to descend into a life of crime, trying to survive. It's also a meditation on like grief and being dispossessed. That's what lumpen means. It means dispossessed, kind of life. They are so shut in and isolated. Most of this book takes place within their apartment, and it's just like a whole world of grief and isolation and sadness, and what forces kind of infringe on our life and are potentially like always there on the outside of our lives waiting to get in when they're least expected. So this one was really hard hitting. I think I would like to explore more Bolaño because I didn't fully connect with this book, but it was still like a really remarkable study. So that is A Little Lumpen Novelita. For the UK, I'm gonna put Julius Caesar. I'm gonna count Julius Caesar by Shakespeare as the one for this Around the World challenge. This is one of the dark academic book picks for 2021 as well. I really, really enjoyed this. One of my favorite Shakespeare plays for sure. The language was beautiful. This is the gorgeous Pan Macmillan collector's edition. Shakespeare's plays about antiquity and especially about ancient Rome are some of my favorites to read, so I don't have too much to say other than that this was absolutely brilliant. I tabbed so many gorgeous quotes and lines and I was just thoroughly impressed. I really, really liked this, and so that's the one I want to count for the United Kingdom. Next up we have Turkey, and I think this is going to be one of my new favorite authors because for Turkish lit we have Orhan Pamuk. This was incredible. So I got to read Snow. I was just researching Turkish literature and snow came up and I just decided to give it a try. This is a book with a lot going on, so I'll give you just a very vague synopsis. We are following this exiled poet named Ka, and after 12 years away from his home, he comes back to Istanbul and he makes a trip to the border city of Kars to investigate, under the guise of being a journalist, a series of suicides that are going through the city among religious girls who are forbidden to wear their headscarves. But he's not a journalist, he is a poet, and he's also there to reconnect with an old school classmate who he is interested in as pursuing as his wife. And there's just a lot going on. This book is so political, it's so fascinating, it's so important. Pamuk's voice is really interesting. The narrator is also a character because the narrator isn't Ka in here, which I found really interesting. I always love when authors choose to do that sometimes, and I think this book worked so well. It was just like a little farce of politics. The whole book takes place pretty much in the city of Kars, where snow, as you can see, abounds. The imagery, the use, the portrayal, the personification, and the consequences that snow as a natural phenomenon brings about in this book are so crazy. Like, I just lost keeping track of it because the word snow and snow related weather is mentioned so much in this book. While they're in the city, they get snowed in. So just crazy. I would love to read this book again, and I am looking forward to reading more Pamuk because I have some more of him on my shelves now. So thoroughly impressed. Glorious. Next up, from Nigeria, we have Nnedi Okorafor, who is a Nigerian-American author, and I got to read her beautiful science fiction book, Remote Control. This one, I wasn't really sure what I was stepping into, but basically, I loved it. We are following a young girl who comes to be known as the adopted daughter of death. After this meteor shower comes down and she touches a rock, and all of a sudden she gets infused with green light, and from there she gets powers that she has no idea what they are or where they came from. And so she leaves her home in Ghana and starts to wander around the country looking for answers. People are so scared of her because they've seen what she can do. This book is just so much about technology and also about post-colonialism. It was fascinating, it was terrifying. Once again, this is a book where you get to the end of it and you're like, oh my goodness. The more and more I'm like thinking about it now, like this was actually so cleverly and so phenomenally done. The title alone suggests so much of what the book is about, and I would love to go back and reread it because, like I said, by the time you get to the end, you realize the book was discussing so much more, and just like so many things are hidden in the book, you get to the end and realize that there was a lot like hidden, not only within the plot, but like within what the book was discussing as well, which was crazy. So I'd love to read more Okorafor in the future. This was great. From France, I think the first one I read this year was Micromegas. I listened to this by Voltaire. This is really great. This is a little philosophical work about how tiny and insignificant we are and how we're just little specks of dust compared to the rest of the universe. And so we follow this giant from the star Sirius, I think. His name is Micromegas, and he goes on a trip around our solar system looking for sentient life, but when he comes to Earth, he can't even hear us or see us because he's so big and we're so small. This was great, it had beautiful writing, and I loved it. Next up, from South Africa, I read Ungirls by Lauren Buchez. This is a shorter book. Again, I listened to the audiobook, and this is, once again, science fiction set in a futuristic Cape Town. Ungirls, I actually didn't really like very much. This is probably the book I didn't enjoy the most on this list. This one follows a group of sex workers in Cape Town, and one in particular, a girl named Natalie, who has recently given her voice, recorded her voice, to be installed in the new sex dolls that are going around being sold, and so they all have like her voice. It is like an international product now, basically, that's gone all over the globe, and they have her voice. We also follow a few other people, but I just felt like this book was a lot of shock factor with not very much substance or explanation. I think what it did choose to discuss was incredibly cool and interesting and poignant and deserved longer discussions, but this was also a short book. It was jam-packed. There was a ton of shock factor with not a lot of afterwards discussion or anything like that, and I think it just tried to follow too many people and do too many things, but on the whole, I really liked what it it did with some things. So that is Ungirls. Next, we have Rilke. Rilke was born in Prague, although at the time that he was living, it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but I reread Letters to a Young Poet in March, loved it. I also chose to do a whole video about this collection of letters recently. I'm not going to speak any more about it here. Just know that it just has exponentially somehow grown and grown to have so much importance in my life, in my heart, in my soul, in my brain, and I think everything that I do, and I am so grateful that this exists. So there we go. One of my favorite books of all time now that came off of this list, this tour, is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi. This was fantastic, 5 stars. I don't want to say too much about it other than please go read it. I haven't really heard anyone talk about this, and I'm just so happy that I picked it up. This is set in 2005 Baghdad, and we are following again a group of people, and we have a man who is a kind of junk dealer, and he decides to make a monster out of body parts of those who have died recently in explosions in Baghdad. The city is also being occupied at the minute by American soldiers and the Americans, and so there's tons going on in this book. The junk dealer named Hati chooses to make a monster out of these body parts so that the government and the Americans and his neighbors and everyone can see these people as real people, and to afford them kind of a proper burial when they are sewed together as one person, as at the minute their souls are unable to find their body. This book was so good, so good. Like, it just gave me chills. I think I dog-eared this whole thing. It was amazing. I don't think this translation is the best one ever. I wish I could read it in its original language. This is translated by Jonathan Wright. I love this. I love this. I love this. I actually have no idea if Ahmed Sadawi has written anything else, but I really hope so. I really hope so, because this is on my favorite shelf of all time now. From South Korea, I read Almond by Won Pyung-sun. This was okay. I actually didn't really jive with this one either, but we are following a boy who has alexithymia, which means that he can't process all of the emotions that his mom and grandma can, and so they are who raise him. They teach him how to act in certain social situations. They help him out with categorizing emotions and stuff like that, because he is unable to distinguish like pain or jealousy or hatred or fear or stuff like that, so it gets him into a lot of tricky situations. His life changes when a huge tragedy befalls him, and I'm not going to say anything, but for one reason or another, his support system is taken away from him, and so he has to cope now pretty much alone in the world. And he's going to school. Like I said, he's not very old, and another boy comes into his life, and they engage in kind of this weird tumultuous friendship eventually. So this was okay. It didn't do very much for me, I think, but I am glad that I read it, and I'm definitely interested in reading more from South Korea. I would love, love, love to read some more literature from this country as well. So that is Almond. From Poland, we have Swimming in the Dark by Tomasz Jutrowski. I like this, but I didn't love it for sure. This one is set in Poland in the 1980s when the party is in power, and we follow 2 boys who are forming or trying to form a relationship. But as you can imagine, it is so difficult. They meet at a summer camp, and we have Janusz and Ludwig, and it follows their relationship, what they will do for each other, what they will sacrifice for each other, and ultimately what maybe they can't or won't or choose not to. It is super sad, but also super beautiful. Like, the writing is very, very lyrical. I love it. And this one feels more like it. One thing I can say is that it felt very real. Like, I very much felt like I was reading straight from Ludwig's journals or like diary entries. It didn't feel like fiction so much, which was really, really great. But on the whole, like, I just don't think the story, and especially the ending, I don't know, I just wasn't super in love with it. But I think the writing was beautiful, gorgeous, lyrical, nice. From Cyprus, we have The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This was great. I loved it. Kind of a psychological thriller with, honestly, a lot of twists. And also a lot of Greek myth and Greek tragedy infused in here. We have a woman named Alicia, and she has murdered her husband. She shoots him 7 times in the face, and after that she stops speaking, and so she is committed to a psychiatric hospital. We also switch to the perspective of her psychotherapist named Theo, who's been transferred to Alicia's hospital by his express desire to be her psychotherapist. So There's a lot going on in this book. There's tons. Another really cool thing is that Alicia like stopped talking, but her last form of communication was a painting, because she was an extremely gifted painter before the thing with her husband happened. And so the painting that she leaves is called Alcestis, which takes its name from a lesser known play of Euripides, which has to do with coming back from the dead and dying and all of that stuff. And so she portrays herself as Alcestis, and no one knows why. This was really, really good. I really liked it. Once again, I think I enjoy more thinking about it instead of like the act of listening to it or reading it, just because it had some really cool ideas. The floor of this book like fell out beneath me, and I remember I was like walking as I was listening to this, and all of a sudden I was just like, oh no. It was so good. It was so good. I love those moments, and very rarely do books like do that to me. So I was just like floored. And I also have another one of his works here that I want to read hopefully this year. So that is Alex. We're not on a first name basis. I don't know why I call him Alex. From the United States, I chose to put on In Watermelon Sugar by Richard Brautigan for this challenge, just because I thought it was a cool representative book of the US during the counterculture movement, which was really interesting. So In Watermelon Sugar is a super bizarre book where we're set in a world where everything, pretty much everything, is made from watermelon sugar. And so we follow this man who is writing a book on where he lives, which hasn't been done in quite a long time. And so we are reading the book that he is writing. There's a lot of bizarre things in this book. It's also extremely pretty, extremely beautiful. The landscape, everything that Richard Brautigan chooses to include in here and talk about. It's a little bit of a utopian vision gone extremely violent and gory. It was great. I definitely want to read it with my own eyes because I listened to the audiobook, and I think Richard Brautigan is an author I'd like to explore more. He has a lot of stuff, and In Watermelon Sugar was just so funkily creepy, but also very pretty and like floating. This book felt like cotton candy and orange slices, but also like bloody noses that don't stop for like hours and hours. And those suck. So anyway, super weird. I would suggest giving it a try if you just want to like go on a little adventure to who knows where. So that is In Watermelon Sugar. From Italy, we have a stellar pick because I read My Brilliant Friend by Lena Ferrante. The audiobook for this is also really great, would recommend. This was great. This is book one of the Neapolitan novels. We are set in Naples in the 1950s, and we follow two girls and their friendship growing up, Lenu and Lila. Ooh, just like this felt like a movie, one of the most immersive books I've ever read. Ferrante has such a talent of being so immersive, so realistic, and so like wonderfully adept at portraying the simplest things of life. This is very much like a true to life portrait of these two girls growing up, the challenges that they face, the stressors on their friendship and their relationship, the competitive nature, and also the whole neighborhood where they live in Naples and the traditions that have been built up. Lila's parents run a shoe shop, and Lenu's parents are a bit better off, so she gets to go to school, whereas Lila is held back and decides to work in the shoe shop with her brother and father as well. This was really, really good, and I would recommend, and I need to read the next books because I don't know what happens, and I need to. Right, we're now gonna take a trip to Brazil because we have The Alienist and Other Stories by Machado de Assis. I loved this. This was so good. I cannot wait to read more from him. I thought these were fantastic. I gave this collection 4.5 stars, and I usually do not like short story collections, so that's how you know that this was really, really good. I loved it. My favorite was definitely the title story, in which we have a man who opens up an asylum, and eventually pretty much everyone in the town gets committed, and it's just like a really cool study of like scientific enlightenment and scientific progress and revolution, and just like our own inflated superiority of ourselves as human beings, as well as like mental illness and what is categorized as such. And it was really, really good. Besides that, he is so clever, he is so funny, he pokes fun at so much, and it was just so good. I love this. So yeah, this one is translated by John Charles Chastain, and loved it. Brazil, thank you. From Lebanon, we have another 5-star, and that is The Prophet by Gibran. This was so good. I love this. This is my second Troubadour book, but well worth stepping into this. This is essentially like a little piece of advice from this man called the Prophet, who is leaving this place where he's always been, and everyone who lives there comes out and they're like, wait, give us advice before you go. And so he gives you pages and pages of advice about everything you could want in your life in the most beautiful language. Gibran's language is sublime. So good, so lyrical, so gorgeous. Like, his writing is insane, and he also reminds me so much of Rilke, which is really cool. And they did live around the same time, which is interesting. So I'd love to like do more with that connection, I think, because I just think it's so interesting. But highly would recommend either this or The Broken Wings. Like I said, I think they're both great places to start, so yes. And now finally, we will take our last trip, our final destination. Come fly with me to my home country. If you look out your left window, oh yes, there's a moose. All right, we have landed in beautiful Prince Edward Island, Canada. It's Anne of Green Gables. Oh my gosh, another 5-star book. Thank you L.M. Montgomery. This book is now part of my bloodstream and my heartstrings and my very soul. This is gorgeous. Just everything in this book I cannot praise enough. I think this is an expertly put together book. All of the elements, every single thing you could ever want in a novel. All of the aspects of this novel, 10 out of 10. Characters, development, writing, nature, metaphor, moral. Every single thing in this book is beautiful. It is literally a perfect book. I don't think I've ever come across something as wonderful as this. She is funny, she is intricate, she is clever, she has beautiful writing, she is so able to like see people and so expertly translate them onto a page. And I just was blown away. I can't believe this is my first time reading this book, and I need to read the rest of them now because wow, this like actually just did so much for me, and it just blew it out of the water. Like, I was not expecting a lot of things from this, to be honest. Like, obviously I've known of Anne of Green Gables my whole life, but I was not expecting great things from the book for some reason. And it absolutely just swept the floor. That is the last book that I believe I'm up to date on with new countries, so very much looking forward to ticking at least another 21 countries or maybe more off the list in the second half of the year, and then we can wrap it up and do another little update video then. So thank you for coming along with me on this trip. This was so much fun, and if you have any recommendations for countries you'd like to see, I do have another book haul in like several countries where each book is from a different country coming soon, so hopefully we can get some of those read for this challenge as well. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching, and this was so much fun, and I hope you get a good sleep. And once again, thank you so much Helix for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. So ciao.